Hello and good morning. So today we are joined by Heather. So can you do me a favor and can you introduce yourself because you're going to do this a lot better than I can, and let us know who you are and what you do.
Yeah, good morning. My name is Heather, and currently I am podcast host of Change Happened, Then What, which is a storytelling podcast where I do interviews and tell stories of people that have gone through life-changing moments, and then they have turned their life into something good as opposed to staying stuck. That's what I do currently. I have done many, many things in my life.
What I will do is I will link your podcast in the description because yeah, I've listened to some of these stories and they have been amazing and they're so inspirational. So I guess with you interviewing, because I do this with mine as well, like they are so inspirational, all these people that you talk to. Does that have a really big impact on how you live your life after hearing everyone's stories?
So it's really interesting that you asked that because, I mean, so much of my life has revolved around change, and that's how I live my life. So it's kind of what made me start this podcast, really, is because I wanted to tell these stories. Because I think it's so pivotal, because I know so many people get just stuck in the quagmire of their everyday life and they don't know how to get out. And I don't think you can tell enough good stories in a day, to help people because you never know which one is actually going to get you out of that, quicksand that you just don't know how to get out of. Because it could be that one story that just pulls you out. And I know that these stories in this season are all people that have literally helped me at one point in my life. And as I'm building season two, which I'm so excited about, there are people that I don't know. And listening to their stories, it's like, wow, this is so cool. Like I'm super excited about it. But yeah, it really does impact it. And then listening to them, over and over, like, you kinda have to compartmentalize, like, "Okay, this is the story that I'm telling," but then when you listen to it all put together, it's like, "Wow, this is just so amazing."
Yeah. Yeah, so that's one thing that I love to do on my podcast, on this podcast, is I love to share stories of like motherhood and life and yoga and wellness and all these things that can help to create a better life for somebody. Because sometimes you don't realize you need something until you hear somebody else saying it. And I've
Yeah,
spoken to so many different people and they suddenly mention, I don't know, like some kind of yoga or affirmations or journaling. And then they're like, oh, I don't do this stuff. Maybe I should do this stuff. And it can completely change somebody else's life. So it's really great for other people to hear the stories and the change. So on that note, I would love to hear your
yeah.
story. So can
So
we go for your change story?
yeah. So, I mean, my first change story started when I was 27 and I had 2 very small babies. You speak of motherhood, my first child was 3 and my baby was 18 months, and I lost my brother to a suicide.
Oh my God.
So that change moment really a took everything from me, like he was my heart and soul. And in that moment I decided that I was going to no longer live for everybody else, but I was going to start living for myself, and I was going to find happiness because I wasn't going to raise these 2 babies in a world that wasn't happy, because obviously that's what he was going through. There was drugs and alcohol and depression and, everything that goes along with, somebody that has the ability to, take their own life and die by suicide. Um, so that moment changed everything for me, and I decided to start living like that. So that's how I found my first smile, was through him, because that's what he did for me, was make me laugh. So, in raising kids in that environment and teaching them, life skills, teaching them mental health, teaching them how to grow up in a society where mental health needed to be talked about was very different than what I think some people do. Obviously, now 23 years later, it's very different. You know, I have a 25-year-old and a 23-year-old. So you times are different, mental health is different, we talk about it differently, and I'm not sure how it is in the UK versus the United States, but back then it was very stigmatized. You know, now it's less stigmatized, but it still has a long way to go, as far as I'm concerned. So I think talking to your kids about that made a huge difference, and putting them in, you know, therapy at a young age and teaching them what, you know, real love was in a family as opposed to what it wasn't, you know, all of those things I think is really important.
Yeah, that is such a major thing to go through. And well done for turning that around into something positive, because I can imagine how hard that is and how you could have easily gone the other route and, you know, ended up depressed yourself. So well done, because that is a very big achievement for sure. Um
Feels
yeah,
it now, 22 years later.
yeah, that is incredible. I think here in the UK we don't have as much. I don't know about anybody else in the UK, but for me personally, when I watch American shows, I love the fact that it seems like everybody goes to therapy. Like even the kids, it's like everybody has a therapist. I feel like in the UK we're not up to that yet. And I don't know if that's just me or like down south where I live, but that is an unknown thing to have a therapist. I feel like if anybody here were to say, you know, I'm going to therapy, everyone would be like, why? What's wrong with you? Like
Yeah,
it's still not that that much of a thing, which is why I am so passionate about sharing this kind of stuff, because we can help people through this way as well. And luckily podcasts are starting to become a very big thing. Um
yeah.
so I guess what was your thoughts at the time all this was going on? Like how did you end up like thinking about it in a more positive way, because that is a really big deal.
I think I think inherently I was born with something different than some people are born with. I don't know how else to describe it, because I remember even as little as being on the plane ride coming home, and I have a journal that I wrote in, and I still have it today, where I wrote down all of the things or all of the signs that I saw while I was on my way home, of guidance from spirit or whatever you want to call it, just divine guidance. And I would say I was, I'm a recovering Catholic, is how I describe myself, because I was born and raised Catholic. I was a born again Christian at one point in my life. I was very much into um, any kind of like learning about religion. I learned about Judaism. I was learned about Sikhism. Like I had to know about religion. But what it boiled down to for me was I found myself just being what I call now a spiritual being. Like if you learn about these religions, there is one common truth that I can come to, and that there is love, and that there is compassion, and that there is non-judgment. And I say that because I'm not a radical, because you can find radicalism in every single religion if you look deep enough. But if you look at the basis of what every religion is teaching you, it is love, and it is compassion, and it is to just trust and have faith in something bigger than you. And when I get to that place, I can look at everything from that space. And then everything has this really big filter of just being spiritual. And it really doesn't matter what you think you believe in. It all filters into that one place. And you can call it a he, you can call it a she, you can call it an it, you can call it a tree, you can call it a deer, you can call it a bear, you can call it whatever you want. It's really just having faith in something bigger than you. And it doesn't really matter what it is.
Yeah,
And I
totally
think
agree.
that's where it all came from for me, because that's what I believed in. And so that's where the good came from, because I couldn't get stuck in the bad. To get back to that's where the original question comes from, right? So how did I get through it? That's how I got through it. I got through it with faith, but it wasn't with any one thing in particular. It was just a matter of having faith that something good had to come out of this. I couldn't let any more bad come from it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think sometimes people are just born a certain way. And it's just the way that you end up thinking mostly. I think
Mm,
you can change that over time. I think,
sure.
yeah, if you are a very depressing person, I think there are ways that you can get help to start thinking more positive and to start seeing the light. And I love what you said about how most religion comes down to the same thing, because I am not religious at all. But that being said, I got very into yoga, and now I would say I'm quite a spiritual person. And I do love like looking at Hinduism and how they see the gods. And because obviously that all comes across in yoga. And at the end of the day, it is all about healing and love. And yeah, being kind, being like a nice person is basically the gist of, I think, every single religion and spirituality thing out there. Um, so on that note, let's talk about yoga, shall we? Because you do
Yeah.
yoga. So how did
Uh-huh.
you get into it?
So, so I'm a Kundalini yoga teacher, and I don't currently teach at this point, but I still practice. And I think that's a huge. I'm not sure what method you teach or you practice, but I think there's a huge difference. There's a huge understanding what with people in the yoga world, that practicing yoga like throughout your day is such a huge piece of the puzzle. Like Yogi Bhajan used to teach us that 80% of it was just showing up whether you did the movement or not. So when I think about going through my day, it's about remembering my breath. It's about remembering where I am. It's about being present. It's about everything else other than the posture. And that's what I think about when I think about my practice and my yoga. And I was always It's been I've been a teacher for, I think it's been 13 years now, and I was just so drawn to the movement and to the breath. I can't even remember. I can't even remember how how I got there. Like, I think it just was an organic thing of I lived in a town where it was so prevalent, not Kundalini specifically, but yoga. And I was just so drawn to Kundalini that when the opportunity arose for me to go get my teacher training and be out in Espanola for a month and do all of that, it was just a no brainer. I just had to do it.
Yeah. I think with the way that you are coming across as well, and the way that you seem like you do kind of see the light and the positivity and everything, and that to me, like it makes it. It's no wonder you are drawn to Kundalini, because to me, I've been practicing Kundalini quite a lot recently, and it is so soul shifting. It is like
Mm,
it's not what you think of when you think of yoga. For me, whenever I think of yoga, I think of Instagram yogis and like doing the poses and doing vinyasa, but like you said, it's not necessarily about doing the postures and, practicing physically all the time. It's how it comes across in your life. And I think your mindset already is so yogic in the way that you think.
Yeah, well, and I think when you learn the negative mind, the positive mind, and the neutral mind, and when you can get to that neutral mind space, which you learn so much about in Kundalini yoga, and being able to find that neutrality, and also knowing that there is a place for the negative mind and there is a place for the positive mind, and how you can keep all of it, where it belongs without it conquering your everyday, your negative and your positive mind, without either one of those taking over, and finding some neutrality in all of it. Those it's just uh, t- to me, I guess after practicing it for so long, it just comes naturally. But I guess this is where I, see this is what's going on in the world. There's so much that people just get lost in the stuff. And this is why I think what you and what I'm finding so many people are trying to bring light to, through the podcast world and through their books and through the work that they're doing, bringing more light to the world and shedding that space.
Yes. Yeah, I love that because I was scrolling on TikTok not so long ago and I was like, "Oh my God, everything is so negative. Like we need to bring more light into this world. I need to interview more people. I need to get this stuff out there and show these more positive stories." Um so yeah, I love that you said that. So out of interest, because of the yoga and everything like the way that you are, how how does your kids cope with the positive and the negative? Like, do they see you doing Kundalini? Do they practice yoga? Do they just, you know, do what you do?
What's funny, I actually raised them to be their own people. I didn't want to impose anything on them like it was imposed on me. I didn't want them to have to do yoga. I didn't want them to have to go to church. I wanted to teach them all of those things, and about spirituality and about yoga and all of this. And but I didn't want them to feel like it was something that they had to do if it didn't work for them. So, what I see now as they're adults, is them really coming into their own. And, my son is amazing. He did a lot more yoga for like some of his training as a snowboarder when he was in high school. So I think he still uses some of that for when he's like has back pain or other things going on in his life, and he's a little more in tune with that piece. But he struggles a little bit more in his mind than my daughter does. So he gets stuck in like the quagmire, but he has tools because of all the stuff that he did with his mental health when he was growing up. But he's always been like that. That's always been his thing. So now that he's 25, I kind of let him, I help him where I can, but he's 25 and he has to do what he has to do. I can only do so much for him now that he's an adult, right? So that's also part of that piece as being a mom, is separating and letting them find their own path, and hoping that you've given them enough tools and resources that they can do it on their own now that they're an adult. Now my daughter, she's 23, she's getting ready to have her own baby, and she has found her voice. She says what needs to be said. She is very independent, and leans on me when she needs something or feels like she needs more resources. But I don't have a care in the world about either one of them. They're so independent and live on their own, and you couldn't ask for more than that as a mom. You really couldn't.
Yeah, it sounds like you've done an amazing job at raising them. So well
I
done.
I think that I think they're great, and they both have their own path to live now, and just I just every day just go out and live it and learn your own lessons and let them be yours, because that's the only way you're going to learn them.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. You have to kind of go through it yourself, don't you, to figure it out. So for any mums who might be listening, can you give some advice maybe to anyone who thinking about what we've spoken today, like anybody who might have lost somebody who is struggling and how to kind of, I guess, think a little bit more positively?
Yeah, um it's so hard because I'm so grateful to have both of my children, right? So I can only give advice from people around me that I've watched go through losing their own children. My mom and dad, they stuck together. They gave my brother the most unconditional love I've ever seen. And the biggest thing they didn't do for him is they did not enable him in his addiction. They gave him the help that he needed when he needed it to support his children. They did not help him financially because they knew they did not want to enable his addiction, right? So I think that's one of the biggest things you have to do as a parent is you cannot enable your addicted child to continue down that path. You can't have that um co uh what's the right word I'm looking for? Not created, but uh
I
sorry,
know
I
what you
lose
mean,
my
but
word.
I can't think of the word
Yeah,
either.
that anyhow, it'll come to me later. I lose my words with my TBI. You can't have that kind of relationship with your child. You have to let them make their own mistakes, and you have to let them fall sometimes, unfortunately, as hard as it is. Um, Even if it ends in tragedy, and I hate to say that, I really, really do. They put him in rehab, they did all of the right things that they're supposed to do for their child, but they gave him unconditional love, always,
Mm.
always, 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 and still do, and we always know he's with us, that we always know he's with us. And I had another friend of mine who lost her 8-year-old child, in a tragic car accident unexpectedly one day. And that's a loss that you don't know is coming and you have no way to prepare for. And there is no words that can be said when you lose somebody in that capacity. Um, and that's a grieving process that takes on a life of its own. But for her, 23 years later, she is the one that can speak to that. And she has found a way to walk through that door and keep her daughter closer now than not than if she was here, obviously, but that she doesn't have her. She's found a way to keep her very close, and lives through her spirit every day. So I think you find ways, but you never give up the hope that they're gone when you have to when you lose a child. But you look for those resources. You don't stop looking. However, while they're here, you love them like there's no tomorrow because you never know what's going to happen. And
Yeah.
you never go to bed without saying, I love you. And you never go to bed without giving them a hug and a kiss. And you don't stress the small stuff with them. aside from a dog, those babies will give you unconditional love until you teach them different.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much for saying all that. It's easy to forget when, especially when you have younger kids and you're going through the stress of sleepless nights and tantrums and everything else that goes on with it. We're in the process of getting my daughter diagnosed with ADHD right now. And last week was the hardest week ever. And it's nice to hear those words because there were days where I was just like, ready to blow. But I still never went to bed without saying I love you. I still dropped her off at school and I would say, I love you, have the best day ever, even if she's like turns around like, I hate you. I still get in those words to her.
Mhm. And as a parent, I think and you have to understand that that child needs to hear that. That child knows no different.
Mhm.
They don't know what they're saying when they're in that space. I went through it with my son. I totally understand. And you, as the parent, take the break. You take the break.
Yeah.
Put them in the other room. Let them destroy it. You take the break.
Yeah. I think so many parents need to hear that for sure, because that's exactly what I do now, which I never did before. And I will take myself in, and actually, funnily enough, I do kundalini yoga to shift things, and I feel so much calmer after, and then I can go out and I can deal with her. So yeah, it's I think at the end of the day, that's all you can do, isn't it? It's look after yourself, look after your own mind, your own body, because they're going to be their own people and do their own thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will tell you, if you haven't listened to episode 3 yet, you should listen to episode 3 because she has an amazing story to tell about how she shifted her family, especially when you get to
Amazing.
the end.
Yes, I love that. Okay, so anybody listening, I'm going to link the podcast down below. Change happened. Is it change happened or change happens?
Change happened with a D,
Happened.
then what?
Yeah. And I will link that episode as well. So go and listen to that one next. And thank you so much, Heather, for joining me today.
Thank you, Leah. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
Have a good one.